All right, welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Business Owners Mastermind Group Call. It's John Pyron. I am the business doctor. Got my host here. Taking on as host today, Alan Reeves.
Good afternoon, everyone. John, thank you again. Obviously, you're en route somewhere. So
Driving down to Los Angeles, actually Anaheim.
Very cool. Okay.
So today we're talking about sales. So by show of hands, how many of you have been through professional sales training? Gary, Ruth, awesome. Okay. So there's so many different aspects that we can go through today as far as sales is concerned. Let's kind of open it up. What is the biggest challenge that you guys have when it comes to sales? What's the biggest challenge?
Saying too much.
Saying too much, yes.
Say that again.
Saying too much.
Saying too much. Okay. What else?
My thing is time. Again, my problems can be a little bit divergent from what most people have. I'm blessed in that we have a pretty active pipeline, but in my case, it's being able to divert, the amount of time really necessary to have the solid close rate that I would like. Being, like the old saying, you're working too much in the business rather than on the business.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
My biggest difficulty is actually getting a hold of people. That's my number one, just getting a hold of people, getting them to call me back. That's my favorite frustration.
Okay. So it's not so much getting a hold of them, it's getting them to call you back.
Yeah, both, yes.
Okay. Allison here says asking for an order is another big one that's a big deal. Okay. So closing.
The closing.
Okay. All right. So one of the things that I have found is most people are industry-specific trained in sales. So it wasn't until I was about 22 years old, had already built 4 different companies, did I actually go through professional sales training. And as I went through it, I'm like, I don't even know why I'm going to go through this. I already know everything, right? I already been successful in business and sold a lot of stuff. But as I went through this program, it's an audio program, a 12-module audio program. Literally the best combination of other people's stuff I've ever seen. The way it was laid out and the way it was taught, I was like, oh my God, man, if I'd have known this stuff the last 22 years, I mean, I could have done what I did with less than half the effort and a whole lot better result. And so one of the things I learned is sales is a learned skill, number one. Number two, sales is a system and a process. And knowing where you're at in that process will help you tremendously because you can know when to ask questions, when to not ask questions, when to talk, when not to talk, when to close, and when not to close. And so one of the things I want to be very clear on today is sales is completely different than closing. That's one gold nugget I want to put out there right now. Most people think selling is about closing somebody, but in reality, sales is a process, a system that leads up to a close. If you do the sales process correctly, then you will close that sale about 90% before you even get to the close. Close, you can screw up the entire sales process, and as long as your close is nice and tight, you'll do well. Now, that sounds contradictory what I just said. So you can go through the sales process and do a really good job and have that sale about 90% close. where literally, hey, does this make sense for you? Yeah. Well, then let's do this. That's how simple the close can be. But if you screw up the sales process, you can get it to the close and really get that deal done if your close is nice and tight. And so the key is mastering both. And so sales has a system, and it starts off with this. This is a basic sales system, and if you're not going to go back and or if you're listening to the recording, write this down. It starts off with lead generation. Then it starts off with appointment setting. Then it starts off with trust and rapport. Then identifying the customer's needs, sharing the benefits, closing, handling objectives, follow-up, and an occasional wild card would be qualified. Not everything needs to be qualified. That's a basic sales process. Every sales process has one or more of those components. I've seen sales processes that are 15 steps long. I've seen other sales processes that are 2 steps long. And I'll tell you, when you're designing your sales process for your company, the question to always ask yourself is, any of these steps, can I eliminate any of these steps? The least amount of steps you have in the sales process, the better. Let me say that again. The least amount of steps you have in your sales process, the better. Number one is understanding who the buyer is. Who is it that you're trying to sell to? Are they a person that asks a lot of questions? Are they a person that uses their hands a lot and tells a bunch of stories and they're bubbly? Is it a person that is very short and they talk in spurts and really fast? They want you to get to the bottom line. Is it a person that just sits there and listens and it's almost like you got to pull the answer out of them? Knowing the personality type that you're talking to makes the sales process very, very easy now, because it's like having the combination. It's like when we all went to, I think, everybody on this call is probably old enough to remember when you went to high school, you had a locker. And on the first day of high school, they gave you the combination to the locker. Well, what if you showed up on the first day of high school and they go, okay, your locker's number 245, have a good day. And you're like, well, what's the combination? Well, it's up to you to figure it out. Wouldn't you be able to get access to the locker, right? Well, knowing and getting properly trained in sales is like having the combination to everybody's locker. Once you figure out how the process and systems work, you just change out the combination based off of the individual and the words that you use. And so let's kind of break it down. So lead generation. Lead generation is the ability to create a qualified lead in your space. Whatever your perfect client is, does that person fit that description? That's number one. Number two is you need to make sure you have a CRM, a customer relationship manager, a place to keep your leads, their name, phone number, contact. It should integrate with your email. It should integrate with your calendar. It should have the ability to take notes for the phone calls, schedule follow-up calls, being able to put special dates on there like birthdays and anniversaries and dates at the company, very special, memorable dates, because you can set those things to automatically remind you. What is not a database? A yellow notepad, sticky notes, business cards stacked on the desk or in a card holder. That's not a database. The reason your database is so important is, number one, it's the most valuable thing you'll be able to sell at the end of your business career. You repeat that. At the end of the day, when you go to sell your company, your relationship with your database will determine how valuable that database is to a prospective buyer. If you're like Alan Reeves, right, where he's got hundreds of customers, having those people in a database and having the relationships with those people in that database where they constantly buy from you becomes the difference between a one-time valuation and a five-time valuation of the business. The relationships. And so having that in there, in that database is very important. Now, lead generation. The purpose of generating a lead is simply to generate a lead. Nothing more. You're not selling. You're not doing an appointment setting deal. You're not closing. You're not discovering person's needs. The purpose of generating a lead is to generate a lead. Where this applies is, I know Ben goes to the Association of Realtors. And it's one of the places that he goes and meets people and ends up getting business. Well, that is a lead generation activity. So showing up there, understanding, walking in, the purpose of me being here is to generate a lead. It's not to set an appointment. It's not to talk to them about my services or sell them on my services. We've all been to networking events, and usually it's the New York Life salesperson, because this is how they're actually trained, is they're trained to go to a networking event and just shove a bunch of business cards in people's faces, and some of them are going to stick. Okay? And that's not the proper way to generate leads. So when I go to a networking event, I go in with a very specific purpose. I'm here to generate 10 leads. I'm here to generate 5 leads. I usually look at the room and I go, I want 10% of the room. I want 5% of the room. I set a goal when I get there. And if you go to my YouTube channel and you look up how to get the most trained on this. So I got sick and tired of hanging out at a networking event for an hour and a half, having a great time, having some great cocktails, getting into a lot of conversations, and then walking out of there going, who am I going to follow up on? So, when I go to a networking event, what is my intention to go here? Is it to have camaraderie? Is it to generate a lead? Most of the time it's to generate a lead. How many leads do I want to generate? Set that goal ahead of time. Get there to 20 minutes before the thing starts. I go up, I register, I go inside, I look at the room. Where's the restroom? Where's the food? Where's the drinks? Okay? Then I go back to the registration table and I stand there to the right. So when I'm facing the door, I'm standing to the left side of the door, from the inside facing outward to the left side, outside, greeting them. I'm a self-designated greeter. Nobody asked me to do it, okay? But you're going to see how brilliant this is here in a second. I wish I could take credit for it, but I was taught it, and it works very well. And so as people come in, I'm looking at their name badge. Hey, welcome to the event. The food's over there. The restrooms are over there. Make yourself at home. Oh, man, thank you. Great. And then invariably somebody will come in and go, oh, man, how you doing? How you been, man? Great, man. Hey, I'm just greeting some people right now. I'll come and connect with you here in a little bit, okay? So what I'm doing by watching those people come in is I'm identifying right then and there, who do I want to connect with? I'm not going to connect with them right there, but I'm going to connect with them after the room starts to fill up. I can go and pick whoever I want now, and I'm looking at, do I like the person? How was their handshake? Are they in a business that I want to target? I go in and let's just say my goal was 10. I go in, I have my conversations real quick. I grab my 10 leads and I'm gone. I'm not hanging out there. I want to appear to be busy. Okay? And so when I go there, you got to understand there's an acronym called FORM, which stands for Family, Occupation, Recreation, and Message. Right? Or the 3 C's. I want to find something we have in common, something I can compliment them on, or something that I can comment on, right? So those are 2 acronyms that I use when I'm in a networking event, so I'm not all freaked out. What do I say when I talk to this person? The other thing is they're there to meet me. Hey, everybody's there to meet somebody. I go up and I go, hey, Harry, what brings you to the networking event? She says, well, I was invited here by Joe. Great, man. What is it that you do? I see that you're in that, whatever type of business. Yeah, great. How long have you been doing that? Oh, I've been doing that. Great. So what is your target client? Who are you specifically targeting? Great. I'm going to ask questions until Carrie says to me, "Oh, John, what is it that you do?" All my question and answer all throughout it is all about them. I want to know 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 them until they say, "Hey, tell me about you." Now, if they don't ask about me after I've asked them about 5 or 6 questions, they're not open. And I just quietly say, "Hey, man, it was really nice meeting you. I'm going to go meet some other people. Enjoy yourself." Or I'll connect them with somebody else. But invariably, they're going to ask, "So what is it that you do?" They're not asking you if you're a cybersecurity person. They're not asking you if you own a power washing company, or they're not asking you if you're a business consultant. They're not asking you if you help people, if you're a financial advisor. They're not asking you for your title. What they're asking is, what do you do? Okay? So what do you actually do for your customers? So if Alan Reeves is in a networking event, they say, "Hey, Alan, so what is it that you do?" And he's got his Shield IQ hat on today. I help protect people's identity. I help them from getting ripped off. I help them from having somebody else file a tax return under their Social Security number, and then they got to unravel all of it. That's what I actually do. Well, how do you do that? Well, there's a lot. It's really complicated. It's a lot of stuff. Tell you what, we're at a networking event, and here's the deal. They're going to ask you to explain more, and I want you to take it away from them. Don't gurgitate all over them. Okay? So I am fishing. I got my hook out there. So what is it that you do, John? Now I'm going to set the hook. You know what? I eliminate the frustrations of owning a business, and I help business owners sleep better at night. Well, what? How do you do that? See, that's a hook. I want them to bite that hook. So now, when they bit the hook, I go, you know what? There's a lot of different ways. I don't even know how I would be able to help you. But I tell you what, why don't I do this? Why don't I send you some information about my company, and we could follow up outside of the networking event? Would you like me to send you some information? They always say yes. And then, don't whip out your card. Okay? This is key. Okay? I ask them, how would you like me to send it to you? You want me to send it to you via email, snail mail, carrier pigeon? They always laugh. Okay? Humor builds rapport instantly. When they whip out their card, and they hand me their card. And then I go, okay, so Joe Smith, this is your email. Is this the best phone number to get a hold of you at? Yeah, great. All right, I will send you the information later on tonight or tomorrow, okay? And I go to put their card in my pocket. I'm not handing my card to them. Why? Because their next question is, can I have your card? I want them to ask me for my card, not the other way around. Now, it sounds like, oh, my God, that's manipulation. No, it works because psychologically I want them wanting me, not the other way around. Okay? And that's how you walk out of the room with quality leads of people that want you to connect with them. Okay? So that's lead generation. Lead generation is also referrals, person of influence. Everybody has a network that they have influence with, but not everybody's a POI for you. A POI is somebody who has a high percentage of your target market inside their network. And you want to develop about 4 of those relationships. One of the best lead generation strategies is follow your money. Every single person you pay money to, you should go and tell them about what you do. And you tell them, hey, who do you know that could use some exterior cleaning on their home? I don't know. Well, if you did know, who would that be? You've been my dry cleaner forever. I've been getting my dry cleaning here all this time. I've been getting my car fixed here. I've been getting my car washed here. Who do you know, man? The people that you pay money to will feed you leads. Okay? And there's about 12 other lead generation systems. So if you're listening to this recording, I want you to send me a text at 916-741-0596. 916-741-0596. Put mastermind call sales. And what I did for 2.5 years, I first started with a 12-week cycle. So the United States Small Business Administration asked me to come in and lead a mastermind group. Remember that, Carrie? I did that every week for 2.5 years. And so the first thing I did was I broke down in a 12-week series every single step of the sales process: lead generation, appointment setting, trust and rapport. Grant Perry was my co-host. I recorded it all, and I got it in a Dropbox, and I will give it to you for free on a silver platter. Just send me the text, okay? So I put it on audio base so you can listen to it as you're driving. I want you to go through it about 7 times, and it's some of the best lead generation appointment setting ideas that I've ever learned and have used myself, okay? But I will tell you this, for the sake of time, I'm going to open it up for Q&A here in a second, but here's the number one. I can point to a lot of great ideas and great lessons in business, but this is the absolute number one holy grail lesson in business. Generate leads. Every single day, generate leads. Every single day, add more leads. Leads are like fuel to a fire. They are like the wood you put on a fire. The moment you stop generating leads, everything else in your sales process changes. Okay? But if you're constantly adding leads, your confidence level in every single area of the sales process is stellar. When you don't need somebody because you're constantly adding new wood to your fire, you can get a lot more aggressive in the close. Okay? I was talking to my client, Nitsa. Her and I have been together for 6.5 years. She is a document management provider. She deals with nothing but attorney firms. And I have pounded this in her head for 6 years. And we put in systems in place where she's constantly generating leads. She does not stop. And so now she's getting into deals where $65,000, $75,000, $80,000 projects with these attorney firms that are, 1,500 attorneys. And every time she goes to do the contract, the attorney wants to redline all the crap out of the contract that they don't like, right? And every week she calls me up. We go through about 1 or 2 of these a week. She goes, "How should we respond?" I go, "Well, what do you think?" She goes, "Well, I don't need them." I go, "Then you tell them, hey, I'm not willing to do this, and this. And if you want me, then sign there. If not, we're not a fit." And 90% of the time they sign with her. Because she's like, she doesn't need them. But I guarantee you, the moment she stops generating leads, if she starts resting on her laurels, she's not going to have that confidence level. So, and the person on the other end can always sense that you need them. And so that's why you want to constantly add new leads to the database. So go, those of you that are on the call right now are the ones that are listening to the recording. I'll send you that training. Go through that training. And I might just start up another 12-week series. I got to get a hold of the SBDC and SBA and get them to sponsor it again. But that'd be a lot of fun to get updated stuff, especially with the COVID strategy.
Oh, he's catching
One more thing, which is what Carrie pointed out, which is talking too much. Okay? Question-based selling. It's by a guy named Freese, F-R-E-E-S-E. Question-based selling. 90% of your time you should be asking questions. Only 10% of the time should you be talking and sharing about you. If you master that, you'll sell a whole lot more. Alan, you had something to say?
So there's a part of what, just going back to a little tidbit you said, the person at the other end can always sense where you are in the power level in this conversation. It's really quite remarkable. There's been a lot of psychological studies done. There's been books written. There's been all kinds of stuff. But that energy that you're bringing is a very, very, very real thing. And, that kind of takes me back. This is sort of counterintuitive, but one of the best sales books that I ever read was not a sales book at all. And it was How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie, that's a classic. And it's dated, but you want to talk about something that ages well. My introduction to Dale Carnegie was, I was about 10 years old. And there was a guy in my life who was pretty important at the time. And he was regaling me with things that he had taken away from that book. And the number one thing, because I was a shy kid, is the concept of embarrassment. And basically Carnegie said that if you are comfortable in your own skin, if you are healthy and happy with your own truth, you will never be embarrassed. You are human, and you will walk into a room, maybe to an interview or to a meeting, and trip over the rug that wasn't there, go flying. Things happen to all of us as humans, but the proper healthy mindset is laughing at yourself, getting up and owning it, and we have, and again, I'm not gonna diverge into this. You can look around at people that are held up as celebrities, politicians, people that we've looked up to for years, acting badly. They can't take a joke. I mean, Will Smith drops right into mine here. But that sort of healthy mental energy and being comfortable in your own skin, that is something that other people will feel if it is sincere and honest within you. And that is something that you can certainly work on. That's something that anybody can work on, just like going to the gym. If you work those muscles, then you cannot help but get stronger in that regard. And people, we saw this in the book and the movie The Secret. People are attracted to positivity and positive energy, whether they realize it's happening or not. And that's one reason why your greeter strategy works, John, is you're kind of putting yourself in a position there. You literally are putting yourself in a position at the doorway, and you're not lying to anybody, but they're getting a vibe, they're getting a feeling for, okay, this is what this person is. This is his role here, is to more or less kind of be my concierge. And then when they find out, you know what? No, you're not waiting the tables. You're not actually there in an official capacity for the event hall at all. You're John Pyron, and this is what I do. But I want to hear about you. What do people love to talk about more than anything in the world? Themselves. And if you enable them to be able to do that, and you are receiving it positively, you are giving that back to them, you're taking us, and again, you can fake it, but it's not going to work. You've got to be able to take a sincere interest in what this person is telling you. And, again, it's not a sales book, but it was more a book about how to think about yourself, how to conduct yourself. A lot of this goes back to absolute basics, chin up, chest out, and eye contact always. I mean, these things that prior generations, these were lessons to their kids without even thinking about it. Now, most adults don't have these skills. So that in a nutshell, that's where I get the core of any success that I have had. in sales. And I've had some. I mean, John was, we were working with John. We hadn't been working with him very, very long. And one of the all-time feathers in my cap was finishing out a 23-month sales cycle with our local minor league baseball team here in Nashville. And after 21 months, our point of contact, who we'd been working with this entire time, left the organization. And we had to meet these brand new people. I thought we were going to have to start all over again. But long story short, we won that deal. And one of the premier companies in town, one of the premier companies in the state that did what we do, was literally walking distance right across the street from that baseball stadium and the corporate offices. The executives could look out their window and see our competitor every day, but we won that. And the reason we won it was the relationship that we built with the first point of contact. And he did everything in his power when he left to make sure that we would almost have to work to lose that deal. And we bent over backwards to find out about him, to make friends with him, to learn his pets' names, to take him to, there was one little thing. He loved Mexican food. This guy loved Mexican food. So we would always take him to a place called Bakersfield Taco in downtown Nashville. And every single time we'd have the same server. And it was a total fluke, but the server's name was Giuseppe. So we had Giuseppe, the Italian server at Bakersfield Taco. And this became a running joke. And we would always get together, hey, we call him up, hey, Brandon, we're about to finalize some of these options for you. Is it time to go see Giuseppe and have some enchiladas? And you just crack up, like, let's do it. Let's go. And that, I did not raise my hand at the beginning of the call. I've never had professional sales training. I'm sure it would do me well. But when I had to make do without it and figure out, how do I connect with people? It's relationships. It's relationships. And we have, across my companies, we have always done extraordinarily well in that regard. And still do to this day.
Yeah, I mean, asking questions. Get the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it's got 31 chapters. I would highly recommend you read one chapter a day for a year. You'll get through that book 12 times, but it will forever change your people skills. And it'll change every relationship in your life. That book, the only book that's ever been sold more in history is the Bible. So that book has a time. I mean, it's the Bible when it comes to people skills. And even though the stories are very old, they still apply because we're human beings. So I highly recommend you get that. What other questions do you guys have about sales? What else can I help you out with today?
I just had a comment, John, and that is, so often we forget we're the expert at what we do. When we go to talk to people who have a position that's we perceived higher than ours or more important than ours in a company that we're selling to, we forget, but we're the expert in this. They're the expert in everything else that they do, but we're the expert in this. And I think that posture is important. And I don't mean it by arrogance, but knowing obviously not only your product, but how it will fit for them, because you do your company research, you do your individual research, right? The posturing to know that you are actually the expert in this and approach it that way, I think is really key. The other thing I was going to say really quickly is sales has evolved, in my opinion, to a very large degree. From I had IBM sales training, and there are a lot of things I have had to unlearn. And so that's why I really enjoy that. I have a different book that I followed, but it's all about the questions, the quality of the questions, and stop we're pretty well programmed to answer questions. That's just how we've been programmed since we were little. Did you eat that candy? Right up through school. So we're programmed to answer questions when really we don't really know what their objection is. They may say, well, it's too expensive. I understand. What did you expect to pay for a service like mine? Have you had experience with a service like mine? Tell me more about what expensive is for your company. Is it a budget thing or is it we still don't know. We think we know what they mean by their objection or question, but honestly, we really don't. We know what we would mean by that question, but we don't honestly know what they mean by that. So the importance of continuing to ask questions until we feel we truly understand what their concern is, we will be on the winning side of that, because then they will have talked, as you say, you're asking enough questions so that they finally go, well, you were hearing me, you know what I need, I'm ready, right?
Yep. So one of the secrets to objection handling and closing is a term that I created, I don't know, probably 20 years ago, and I called it closing the doors. In pretty much any industry, there's about 5 to 7 objections you're going to get for your product or service. No matter what type of business you start, when you start writing down all the objections you get, you're going to find that there's about 5 to 7 objections. If you're constantly getting the price objection, first question to ask yourself, are you the kind of person that shops based on price? It all starts with you, okay? So if you're constantly giving people the price objection when you're buying stuff, the words that you use when you're talking about your own product could be creating the price objection yourself, okay? The other thing is once you figure out what the top 5 or 7 objections are, if you don't practice and role play a response to those objections, you're going to continue to get that objection until you master how to answer that objection. So my older son, who's now 30, came to me when he was 19, and he had seen what I had done in the area of sales, and so he finally said, hey, would you professionally train me in sales? And I said, sure. And so he was doing, he worked for a company called System Pavers at the time. He was going around knocking on doors, talking to people about System Pavers and setting appointments for a sales rep to come and run the appointment. And I said, okay, here's what you need to do. When you knock on the door, you need to know what to say when they open the door. So we role played how to say that. They're going to give you some objections. I want you, because they're not going to want to set the appointment, so I want you to write down those objections. Every night that you come home, I want you to call me with the objection, and we're going to come up with 3 to 5 responses to that objection. You're going to role play that. And what's going to happen is you're going to stop getting those objections because you're armed for them. Okay? And if you do, then you're going to be able to handle them. A really good, seasoned, trained professional will always only get 1 or 2 objections at the end of their sales presentation. If you're not getting an objection, then, and they just say yes, then you're priced way too low and you're offering way too much value. You need to raise your rate. But if you're priced right and you've properly done the value piece, then what's going to happen is you're going to get 1 objection, maybe 2 at the most. Okay? Now, the price is too high. How many get that objection? Yep. Okay. So what does the price, how many of you believe the price is high is an objection? Raise your hand. If you think the price is too high is an objection, raise your hand. Good, because you guys know this is a baited question. Okay, so the price is too high is a complaint. In fact, there is no objection until you verify it's an objection. Until you verify it's an objection, treat it as a complaint. So it's like somebody you having a conversation with, and they go, "Man, it sure is cold today." Yeah, you're right. So the first rule of thumb in handling an objection is to listen and agree. So when they say, "Yep, man, the price is too high," yeah, I mean, you're right. Price is pretty high. Sign here. No, really, the price is high. You know, I've gone into objections where they go, "The price is too high." I go, "Yeah, I get it, man. You know, this amount of value and the amount of work that we're going to do, that price is up there. Outside of that, is there any other reason why you wouldn't sign today?" "No, that's it." "Okay, well, sign here then." "Oh, okay." So it really wasn't an objection. It was just a complaint. If I'm getting the price objection, there's a couple of different scenarios there. Number one is I didn't ask enough questions to find out what they really want. Okay? How many of you have ever bought a car or a house or anything that you really wanted, and before you left the house, you're like, "I am not going to go over this amount. My payment has to be this, and I'm not buying anything else." Next thing you know, you walk off the lot with the car that you wanted, a higher payment than you expected, and you got more features. Okay? Why? Because the sales rep kept adding value, and you didn't really care what the price was. So when we want something, the only way that we can build value is to ask a tremendous amount of questions. So once we know what they want, then all we got to do when we're presenting to them is replay back what they said they wanted and tie the feature to the benefit. People don't buy features. They buy benefits. Okay? So, you know, Ben can come back with and say, "Hey, we have a tool that will clean all the moss off of your roof." That's a feature. What's the benefit? Well, the benefit is boom, 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 boom. We clean and wash solar panels 4 times a year. Okay, that's a feature. What's the benefit? Well, by allowing us to pressure wash and clean your solar panels 4 times a year, you're going to actually produce more electricity off your solar system because it's going to be a lot clearer for the sun. So the amount of money you're actually going to pay me 4 times a year to come out and clean your solar panel is going to be a very small percentage of how much more electricity you're going to produce from that, and less money you're going to pay PG&E. How would you like me to come out and wash those panels for you once a quarter? I just close them right there because I just explained what the purpose is. Okay? And so instead of you paying all this money to PG&E, you're going to keep a bunch of it in your pocket because you're going to give me a little bit of that PG&E money you're already paying to clean your solar panels. Now, when I get to the end and I ask them to buy, they're not going to say, "Well, you know, I'm not interested." And if they do say that, say, "What part are you not interested in? Generating more electricity or not paying PG&E as much money? Which one of those are you not interested in?" "I'm interested in both." "Okay, well, then we need to do this." But once you have the ammunition, then people don't want to buy. People are afraid to make a buying decision, which is why they are looking for you to validate their decision. And a lot of times you just say, "Hey, you know what? Let's do this. This makes sense." Okay? So any other questions? Clarification, comment? Go for it, Ben. You're muted.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so one thing that we get quite often in our line of work when we're making the sale and we're getting to the closing point is the thing that we hear a lot is, "Well, let me talk to my wife or my husband. Let me talk to my wife, and you know, I'll get back to you on that." And that always it catches me off guard sometimes, and I don't quite have a good response to it. What would be a good response to something like that?
So there's a couple of different ways to respond to something like that, and it depends on your personality and who you're talking to, right? So if I'm talking to somebody who appears to be a D-type personality, they want the price right away, they don't want to chit-chat, they just want to know what I want to do for them, and then they give me, hey, I got to talk to my wife objection. I go, no problem. Let's call her right now. Yeah. Let's get her on the phone right now. Now, if the person's very analytical and he's asking me, so tell me about the pressure washer you're using and exactly what do you do and step by step and what's the schedule, and they're asking all these detailed questions, I'm not going to try that technique with that person because all that's going to do is piss them off. Okay? Because they're an analytical personality. When they say they got to think about it, they actually mean it. If I try to push them, all I'm going to do is push them to say no. But if they're saying, hey, I need to talk to my spouse, you know, one of the things that I always do to prevent that from happening in the first place is I go, hey, you know, this could work for you, right? We would have to role play this, but I'm pretty sure, because we're trying to close them on the deal right then and there when their emotion's high. But sometimes that's not going to be the case. So what I would say to them is like, hey, you know, before I get started here, you know, let's say at the end of the day we work together, we don't work together. I know it's kind of premature, but when it comes time to make that decision, how does that work? Are you the one that makes the decision, or do you have to involve a spouse or significant other? Well, I'm going to have to bring my wife in on this. Okay, well then let's set up a time where I can talk to both of you, and that way you don't have to hear the presentation twice. That's another way to handle it. Terry, you look like you got something.
Yeah, I do. Only, thanks, John. Only because we've been through this a lot with, of course, what I do. It's really better if both partners are there and making the decision. But here's the thing: when you ask them in the beginning, will they have to be part of it? Their ego says no until they get to the decision, to the opportunity to decide, and then they say, "Well, yeah, I really need to call them in on it." So, as opposed to that, I like to ask, who else do you confer with when you make these decisions? Who do you trust that you really ask if you're making a good decision, rather than saying, do you have to go to your wife? I've got to tell you, and especially most men would go, well, no, right? So there's a different kind of a way of asking that. So who will be involved in the decision with you before you even get there? Well, I make all those decisions. I understand that, but usually we have a team or our own, personal board of directors. Who's on your board? And when you kind of phrase it a little differently, you get different answers.
Yeah, I mean, I made this rookie mistake 2 days ago. Sitting down, doing a strategy session with a guy. We paid for a strategy session. I already know that I'm going to be able to work with the guy. I already know we should be able to work together before I even sit down with the guy, right? So we sit down and I decide to violate my own process and my own system. And we just jump right into it. We spend 2 great hours together. We get to the end. He's like, man, I want to work with you and I want to work with you. And this is great. We're getting ready to, basically give each other a hug. And I go, okay, well, here's how much it is. He goes, well, I really need to run this by my wife. I'm like, son of a God, I was about to kick my own butt because I knew I screwed up. Okay? I knew you got to take 100% responsibility for the outcome, and I knew I could have prevented that from happening. I could have said, hey, you know what? Before we get started, we're going to spend the next hour and a half to 2 hours here. We're going to go over your goals and your business, and at the end of the time, if we decide to work together, and I know it's kind of premature, we haven't even gotten started yet, but let's just say we decide to work together. How does that work? He would have came back to me and said, well, I'm going to have to run it by my wife. And I'm going to go, okay, well, here's what we need to do. Let's reschedule where we can have both you and your wife here so she can be involved in this process. Mm-hmm. And, that way you don't have to sit through it twice. There's 2 responses to that. Okay, let's do that. Number 2 response. No, I'm going to go ahead and gather the information right now, and then I'll talk to her and I'll let you know if we're interested. And my response to this, and this is why having a pipeline full, constantly filling your pipeline, comes in very handy at this moment. You're going to say, you know what, I understand that's what you want to do, but that's not how I do business. So unless I can sit down with you and your wife, we're not going to be a fit. So if you want to work with me, this is how the process we need to go through. And if you don't want to go through that process, I totally understand. We're just not a fit, and I take it away. Okay. But I can tell you right now, man, if I had to learn this lesson 25 years ago. God, man, I could have been. And that is never take a no from somebody who can't say yes.
Mhm.
Okay? And you need to have all the parties involved in the decision-making process. Otherwise, you're going to get a bunch of no's. And so what you can do, Ben, is like, hey, you know what? You like the job that we did today? Fantastic. How would you like us to keep your house looking like this on a regular basis? Yeah, great. So how does that decision get made? Do you just make the decision, or is your spouse or significant other involved in the decision? Yeah, she's involved. Okay. Well, why don't we do this? Let's set up a time this week or next week. I'll send you some information. That way I can explain it to both of you and answer both of your questions and see if it makes sense. Well, you know what, Ben, just give me the information and I'll run it by her. Well, I would like to do that, but here's some information. But unfortunately, I can't let you buy this service without me talking to both of you. I need to know both of you are on board. Okay, but I'll get you some information and you guys can talk about it, but I can't go over pricing with you right now. Just take it away. So, but I wouldn't, and it'll save you a ton of time. So, cool deal. All right, guys, it's been a great call today. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll be back here next week. We're going to talk about service delivery next week. So service delivery and making sure that you're doing the right customer service and process to make your client super duper happy and do exactly. You want to overpromise and overdeliver, and we're going to talk about over-delivering next week. So go out and make it happen. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.